When you get in a car, what is the number one thing that you spend the most time on? Is it music, podcasts? What is it for yourself, brother?
To be honest, man, I do a lot of podcasts. And a lot of audio books. If anything, probably audio books would be the main one.
Why do you do that? Is there a purpose to it, my brother?
Yes, because that's when I disconnect from myself from the world. I've got no other distractions except for driving. So when I find when I put on the audio books, I kind of absorb the most information at that time whilst driving.
Love that. Priceless little opportunity. Most people would step in, and music's good, don't get me wrong, and don't get it twisted. Chocolate cake's not a bad thing, but if you're eating it every single day, then it becomes a problem. And the same thing if you're only listening to music but you're wanting more out of life, and my advice to yourself is to go out and start to create that life, and the only one coming and showing up to do that is who, Topsy?
It's yourself, mate. No one but yourself. No one can do it for you. No one can do it with you. It has to be you pulling the trigger.
One of the biggest things I had on the front of my journals is cut the bullshit. Was that something you ever did for yourself too?
There's no time for bullshit. Honestly, if you allow bullshit into your life, all you're doing is putting yourself backward. And I mean at an accelerating pace. It's so hard to catch up. Once you start feeding yourself so much bullshit, you get entangled in your own bullshit, and your own lies, and your own excuses. It's hard to get out of that complexity and that web that you've built around yourself.
It's I look back on it, and what I told myself when the cell door locked for 20 years was that I could do this standing on my head, but I was only putting on a front, a facade, a mask, whatever you wanted to call it. You know, the greatest robbery I ever did was on myself, putting on that mask and robbing myself of life. And Dubai is a place where dreams, goals, aspirations come to life. You look around, buildings, cars, people, the way they dress, the way they act, the way they conduct themselves, and it's just a different standard of life. What's one tip around that little conversation for people to take away from Dubai? Because for me, I come here inspired, motivated to get more out of life and know that there is more. Your tip on goals, dreams, aspirations, and unleashing them to the world.
And you said it perfectly. That word really stood out. It's standard. There is a standard for everything. There is professionalism around everything. The way you're served your coffee has a standard. The way the spoon is placed, the way the cubes of sugar are put in front of you, not the little shitty bags and sachets that are just thrown on the table. No, the way they hand you your cutlery, the way they hand you a straw to have your iced latte, your Americano, whatever you're ordering. Everything is a standard, and that standard brings another standard with it. It's a standard of you showing up to that standard.
It's
you don't
crazy.
even realize it.
The coffee last night that came out for yourself was an actual bit of art, and that person's obviously worked on that coffee coming out that specific way, and it just made you feel. We had a conversation around it because all of a sudden you actually start to feel a specific way, right? And once you feel that way more often than not, as you said, you create a standard for yourself and you start to live by that standard, and your life shifts and change. And that's how we can shift from just a standard way of operation, showing up. We were talking about that yesterday in the cafes with your shirt wrinkled versus showing up, looking after yourself. Does that play a role in people in general, showing up to life differently, or is it okay to just get up and throw any t-shirt on and not care about the world? What's your thoughts on that?
That translates into life. If you know that you can't show up and you have to respect a certain standard and abide by that standard and that set of rules and that responsibility and that professionalism, that's going to shine off into every other area of your life. Because once you get accustomed to that 12 hours a day, everything you do, you're going to set yourself a standard, and you know that you need to show up and meet exactly what the requirements are to life.
Can I ask you this, was it always like that, Topsy, for yourself, or did you once have a standard where it just didn't matter as well, like, whatever, I'll just throw a top on? And how were you operating at that point of time in your life?
Look, for me, I'm happy to say that I was never in that bucket. You know, I was always setting a high standard for myself. I've always set the bar really high for myself. And you know what? I always worried about presentation, the way I was presenting myself, the way I was showing up for myself, my appearance, the way I smell, the way I look, the way people perceive me. I always had that. So I'd never kind of be careless. Even if I was just going to the gym, I wouldn't just throw anything on. Appearance for me is everything.
Love that. And so when you get to the gym, did you have an insecurity around not being the strongest version of yourself when you first started?
No, absolutely not. It was just I had the notion that I had to be a workhorse. I just had to work. I just had to keep improving myself. I had to get stronger. I had the goal set. I knew where I wanted to be. There was no like lazing around the gym. I knew where I wanted to be. There was only one way to get there. And that's by putting in that work, putting in the effort, putting in the time, doing the work. 80% of the work to getting strong is done at home. It's done in your rest and your recovery and your nutrition. It's not done by working out in the gym. That's only 20% of the component. So it's not just about showing up. So when I show up to the gym, I show up treating it like it's a business. I'm there to execute a task. It is my business. It is my personal business. Once I get that done, I focus on the back end, the systems. I get everything in place to that business to ensure the outcome, to ensure the goal is executed.
Love that. For me, one of the biggest things was the discipline behind the little actions. We always hear about people making their bed and stuff of that nature, but it was also about what I told myself as an example. Was it serving me, and having a deep inner look at myself, so you have that inner understanding. And the inner understanding means it's not just understanding, it's understanding yourself and how you're built. And is this truly serving myself, or am I stuck in a rut? And in general allows you to be a better version of yourself tomorrow. And a lot of people won't do that, and they get stuck in the grind of just going through life and then trying to control their life. I see that quite a lot, a standard set. What would your tip be around changing your standards? Like, to me, even cleaning your house. My house is spotless. We could go back from overseas. You could come to my house, or our house, Sal and I, and it's just nice and pristine and clean, because it's a standard. If I don't have that operation every single day, I'm going to respond from what in business, in relationships. If I don't respect myself, how am I going to respect Sal as an example, or you as a business partner? What's your tip to people around that conversation where respect can be built, or how could it be built?
Look, for me, I ask the people a question all the time: where do you live? And they usually reply with a suburb. No. Where do you live, mate? Where do you live in your head? Don't worry about the where you live as a suburb. Where do you live in your head? What's the space that you live in? What does that look like? Are you treating that space like a business? Are you treating that space like a well-oiled machine? Is it like this Lamborghini where you're just showing up in anything? And the way you conduct that and the way you behave in that is generally where you live. So
I love that. Most people sort of get stuck in a rut because they're built a specific way. Is that of the mindset and how you've grown up and who you've been around?
It can be just pure laziness, not wanting to seek the answers. Some people are put down, and it's very unique to each individual. I was put down my entire life. I just didn't believe it. I was told I was a piece of shit. I was told I'd never amount to anything. I was told I was lazy. I was told that I am basically useless and a loser time and time again.
How'd you overcome that? What was the first thing that someone that's sitting here right now going through that same message? I know for myself, the same principle around life. When I don't set a standard for myself and I don't look at myself, I'll respond from how I'm built. So I want to ask you this question relative to that conversation. How you're built, if how you're built is what you become, what would you change to be better tomorrow? And what that means is, as you said, what house are you living in? What thoughts are you living in? What beliefs are you built from? What habits are you creating? Those sorts of conversations. Was there a way of doing that, or was there one thing, or was there many things that stem from?
It's very simple, man. Simplicity of removing yourself and not caring about what anyone says or thinks. That's
love
the
that.
first step.
So
Don't
did you
care
have to
about
drop
anything.
friends that you had for a long
I
time?
dropped everyone emotionally. You know what? Even family. I couldn't drop them physically because I was too young, but I dropped them. I disconnected mentally and emotionally. They were standing in front of me, but it's like they were not there. Like I was seeing a ghost. I was seeing through these people.
Did you feel bad doing
No,
that?
not at all. What for? Because if you think that you have got the authority to tell me such hurtful and shameful things, why do I have to look at you like a human?
I find that a lot of people won't change and shift themselves because, but it's my family. And I want people to think like this. What if the rest of your life was the same as the point of time of your life that you're up to now? You're going to get the same emotions, feelings that you don't want, yet you'll still operate from that because you don't want to let your family down. You're letting yourself down. These goals, dreams, aspirations at Dubai, it's just motivating, inspirational, because we're heading towards the world's tallest building. Someone at some point of time has told you that you can't do something, right, Tops?
Absolutely.
And to crush that, one of the biggest tips that I took away was to focus on myself, the internal of how I'm built, what I'm thinking, how I'm acting, who I'm surrounding myself with, and being better every single day. And we've spoken about that all throughout these conversations together. I want to leave them with something as we head towards this mall. And the mall is unbelievable. It's got a, correct me if I'm wrong, it's got a skiing.
Yeah, it's got an ice skating,
ice skating ring, aquarium in it.
Aquariums, waterfalls, you name it, man.
The marble floors in the pristine mall section of it all. It's just insane, right? What's your advice to someone that gets shut down by their network that says it's not possible, you can't do that, oh, why are you doing that? Who are you? You're too good for us. What's your advice to those people?
You know what? That comes back to a really important question that younger people ask me, and it's a very common question. What advice would you give to your younger self? And I'll be like, don't be scared to cut ties. Cut ties with everything and anyone that's putting you back or holding you down. Anyone that's showing any signs of negativity towards you, cut it. Cut the strings. Let them go.
I love that. My advice to my younger self is be proud of who you were then. We often compare chapter 5 to 55, which means at chapter 55, you're like, I can't believe I did that back then. But you've got to understand, when you're built from a particular cloth, that's the only way you know how to respond and get the most out of your life at that point in time in your life. But once you know, if you let yourself go, then you can beat up on that person, because you had the tools to step into a better conversation for yourself, but you chose to act from a bad space. That's where there's a different conversation. As we come in, Burj Khalifa in the background, world's tallest building. What's one thing you'd say to people just to leave them to unleash their goals, dreams, aspirations? I'm going to finish up with, don't let regret be your middle name. We're going to have a look at the Burj when we jump out of this car. We'll have a look at this car. These were goals, dreams, aspirations. That little dash in between when you're born and when you die, your A to B of life. Turn on your GPS of life, just as we have to get to this mall, and allow yourself to step into the greatest version of yourself. Anyone that tells you anything otherwise than your own goals, dreams, aspirations, as Top said, cut them out of your life. Live your truest you, for you, by you, every single day. Intentional and directional, and understand you ain't anybody but you until you're you. You ain't anybody until you are you. One thing to finish off, Tops, what's your little takeaway for the people that are watching this to step into their goals, dreams, aspirations, and create that building, that success of life?
You know what? Everything's possible. Whatever you put your mind to, it is possible.
Even destructiveness?
You know what? Destructiveness is the easiest path. Anyone can turn it off the switch and just go, I'm going to be destructive. I'm just going to ruin my life. That's the easiest thing that anyone can do. Tap out, I'm done. But what do you leave behind you? A trail of destruction for your family, and potentially your kids to be left with. You're negatively impacting other people. So that's anything like that is very selfish and a very selfish act, tapping out on life. Show up. The tallest building in the world, guess what? Someone's building a taller one. And guess what? Someone else is going to build something taller than that. It doesn't end. It's endless. What we can produce, what the humans can produce in this world, we don't even know yet. We're not even we have no perception of how much we will create and how much we will create. Maybe you will be one of those creators. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is that you set your goals and that you go after those goals every single day. Because today might not be the day, but tomorrow it might be. You never ever know when that lucky break comes through, when that break comes in. But if you don't set yourself up for it, if you're not putting yourself out for it, if you're just working and not working at it, if you're just sitting at home trying to manifest something without taking the actions, it's just not going to happen. You know, every manifestation is backed by action. Every person that says, oh, I manifested that, that's great, but you put action in to create that manifestation. You got to bring that manifestation to life. And that's only done through action and constant and consistent action every single day. Everything has to be engineered towards that goal and geared towards that goal. And guess what? The Burj Khalifa comes out.
Love that, brother. Thanks for sharing, and I appreciate all your time, your energy, your effort, your knowledge sharing in this space. I've learned throughout the day your mindset, your mentality is impeccable, and the commitment to that is a journey that it's just filled with the emotions, the life, the financial freedom, the people that you want to be around. Being around yourself has been so inspiring, my brother, here in Dubai, where dreams, goals, aspirations come to life and nothing is shut down and nothing is impossible. Stay tuned. We're going to leave you with that. We've got more content coming sometime soon for yourselves. Leave a comment below. We want to know what you got out of today. Big love. See you on the flip side.